The Old Carnival, 7 Rules to Survive the Haunted Fairground at Midnight. Part 1. The Ticket. If I could turn back time, I would have burned that damned ticket the moment it slipped into my mailbox. It was a rainy evening, and the sky looked like it was bleeding out into the asphalt. I came home soaked to the bone, jacket dripping, shoes squelching against the cracked tiles of my porch. As I fumbled with my keys, I noticed a small envelope sitting on the doormat, cream-colored, old-fashioned, sealed with a wax stamp depicting a carousel horse. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, maybe a wedding invite, maybe spam. But when I opened it, the paper inside was so brittle it crumbled slightly at the edges. In looping black ink, it simply read, "Congratulations, you are cordially invited to the grand reopening of the Evershade Carnival. One night only. Date, October 31st. Time, 11:59 p.m. Location, the Forgotten Lot, East Hollow. Bring this ticket. No spectators allowed." Attached to the note was a ticket, dark red, shimmering under the flickering porch light. At the bottom, barely visible, were 6 ominous words: "Obey the rules or stay forever." A chill danced down my spine. The street around me was silent, except for the soft pattering of rain and the occasional distant groan of bending trees. I wanted to throw it away. Every cell in my body screamed to. But my curiosity, my stupid, insatiable curiosity, made me tuck it into my jacket pocket instead. The next few days passed in a haze. Every night, I dreamt of colorful tents, echoing laughter, and shadows too tall to belong to any human. When I woke up, my sheets were damp with sweat, and the ticket, the damn ticket, was always lying there on my nightstand, even though I swore I'd hidden it away. By October 31st, it was no longer a choice. It was a compulsion. I had to go. At 11:30 p.m. sharp, I found myself at the Forgotten Lot, a patch of cracked concrete surrounded by rusted-out fences and dead trees. The night was unnaturally still. No crickets, no cars, just the hollow whistle of the wind. Then, exactly at 11:59, the air shifted. From the darkness, lights bloomed into existence. Strings of bare bulbs sputtered to life, casting a sickly yellow glow over faded tents and crooked booths. The Ferris wheel, half collapsed, groaned into motion somewhere deeper in the park. There it was, the Evershade Carnival. I hesitated at the entrance. A tall, thin figure stood at the ticket booth, wearing a moth-eaten top hat and a mask that looked suspiciously like porcelain. He didn't speak, just held out a gloved hand. I offered the ticket. His fingers brushed mine, icy cold, and he nodded once before disappearing into the mist. As I stepped through the archway, a torn banner above me flapped in the dead air. "Welcome back, traveler. Remember." And tucked into my jacket pocket, as if placed there by unseen hands, was another piece of paper. It listed 7 rules. Rules I would have to follow if I wanted to make it out alive. I unfolded it with trembling hands. The paper smelled faintly of old wood and burnt sugar. But the rules themselves, they would have to wait until you were inside. And inside, the carnival had already begun waking up. Part 2. Midnight Arrival. The moment I crossed the threshold, the temperature plummeted. The ground beneath my feet felt almost soft. Not dirt, not grass, but something yielding and cold, like the faded memory of a fairground. Around me, the carnival stretched endlessly into the mist, its tents sagging and threadbare, their once bright colors faded into corpse gray. Wooden signs creaked overhead, their paint peeling, swinging gently, even though there was no wind. Somewhere deep in the gloom, I heard the haunting notes of a calliope, its tune warping and slowing, like a music box dying of old age. Tink, tink, tonk. A child's laughter echoed faintly, high and broken, like a recording played backward. I froze. The lights here were wrong. Flickering bulbs swayed and buzzed in violent bursts, casting monstrous shadows that twisted and bent unnaturally. Every booth I passed seemed abandoned. Stuffed animals with missing eyes, games rigged and forgotten, prizes coated in thick layers of dust. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes watched me from the gaps, from the torn curtains and hollow spaces between tents. Invisible, yet suffocatingly close. At the center of the midway stood a towering carousel. Its horses were grotesque, elongated legs, too many teeth, some frozen mid-scream, as if caught in a moment of agony. The ride spun slowly, chains rattling, though no one rode it. The music twisted again. This time, it wasn't just the calliope. A distant voice crooned along with it, sweet, syrupy, and utterly wrong, like a nursery rhyme sung at a funeral. Round and round the riders go, never fast, never slow. Break the rules and pay the fee, stay forever, just like me. The paper in my jacket burned against my chest, like it was vibrating. I ducked into a shadowy alcove between two tents, my breath misting in the freezing air, and pulled it out. Finally, under the sputtering light, I could read the rules of the Evershade Carnival. 1. Enter only with a valid invitation. Do not bring guests. 2. Stay on the paths marked with white paint. Deviate, and you may not find your way back. 3. Do not eat or drink anything offered. It is not meant for you. 4. If you hear someone call your name, ignore it, no matter how familiar the voice. 5. Do not look into any mirrors you find. 6. If the Ferris wheel stops moving, you must hide, quickly. 7. When the clock strikes 3 a.m., find the exit gate immediately. You have 10 minutes. At the bottom, scrawled in red ink, were the final words. You get one chance, break a rule, and you stay forever. But chill more profound than the night seeped into my bones. Suddenly, from somewhere nearby, came the sound of footsteps, rapid, scrambling, and a low, wet gurgle, like something trying to breathe through a crushed windpipe. I stuffed the rules back into my jacket and stumbled forward, desperate to find a safe path. The white-painted lines on the cracked ground were faded but visible, winding through the twisted carnival like veins. The footsteps grew louder, closer. From the mist emerged a figure, a man in a shredded carnival barker outfit, hat tipped low to hide most of his face. His mouth hung open unnaturally wide, stretching beyond human limits, leaking black smoke that writhed like living worms. He didn't have eyes, just hollow, smoking sockets, and he was sprinting straight at me. Panic seized me. I bolted, my sneakers skidding on the slick ground, following the thin white line desperately. The tents blurred by, flapping violently, as unseen hands clawed at their insides. Bells clanged discordantly, and the ground itself seemed to heave and groan like a living thing. Above it all, the carousel spun faster, its grotesque horses snapping and snarling, as if urging me on. My lungs burned, my heart hammered. I didn't dare look back. Somewhere in the madness, I heard the clock tower begin to chime, a deep, bone-rattling sound that echoed across the abandoned carnival. Midnight had truly arrived, and the Carnival of Evershade was fully awake. Part 3. The First Test. The moment the clock struck midnight, the carnival seemed to inhale, a long, hollow gasp that made the very ground vibrate beneath my feet. The mist thickened, curling into clawed hands that reached for my ankles as I stumbled forward, heart slamming against my ribs like a drum. Behind me, the barker with the hollow eyes screamed. It wasn't a human scream. It was the sound of rusted metal grinding against bone, of broken glass shattering underfoot. It drove into my skull like nails. I kept my eyes locked on the white line. It twisted sharply left, then snaked toward an old game alley lit by flickering bulbs. The gain stalls were alive now. Carnival barkers, their faces stitched into twisted smiles, leaned out and hissed at me. Step right up, win your soul back. Play a game, stay forever. Their voices layered over each other, an ocean of seductive whispers. Somewhere above me, the Ferris wheel groaned, still turning, its rusted carriages swinging like nooses in the cold night. Suddenly, the white line under my feet split. One path veered toward a ring toss booth, decked out in ribbons. The other, toward a shooting gallery, where mannequins dressed like clowns swayed gently in the mist. I skidded to a halt, chest heaving. A choice. Out of nowhere, a little girl appeared at the ring toss booth. She wore a grimy cotton candy pink dress, her hair tangled into greasy curls. Her eyes were enormous, pure white, no pupils, and her mouth twisted into a too-wide grin that stretched ear to ear. She lifted a hand and beckoned me, slow, deliberate. Her fingernails were long, splintered, and blackened at the tips. "Come play with me," she whispered, her voice crackling like a broken radio. The rules burned into my mind. Stay on the white paths. Do not accept offers. I swallowed the rising bile in my throat and forced my legs to move, choosing the path leading toward the shooting gallery, away from the girl. Her smile dropped instantly. Her face twisted into a mask of rage, and she screamed, the sound bursting like a gunshot through the fog. From every tent and booth, things began to stir. I sprinted. The shooting gallery loomed closer, its sign hanging by a single rusty chain. Targets lined the booth. Clown heads, paper ducks, glass bottles, all riddled with bullet holes and slick with something dark and sticky. At the counter, a rifle lay waiting for me. It was old, wood worn smooth by countless desperate hands. Above the rifle, another handwritten sign. Hit the moving target or lose your way forever. Something shifted beyond the booth. A tall, hulking silhouette began moving between the targets. Not another clown dummy, but something bigger, draped in a long, tattered coat, dragging one leg behind it. Its face was hidden under a stained carnival mask, and it carried a mallet as big as my torso. It locked onto me the moment I approached. A shrill bell rang. The shooting gallery came to life. Targets whirred and zipped back and forth. Ducks flapping broken wings. Clowns spinning their grotesque heads. But it was the lumbering figure that charged straight at me. Instinct screamed at me to grab the rifle. I did. It was heavier than it looked, the wood biting cold against my skin. I raised it, aimed desperately at the oncoming monster's chest, and squeezed T. The shot cracked through the freezing night, and for a split second, everything froze. The hulking figure staggered, its mallet slipping from its grasp, and with a thundering crash, it toppled over one of the game booths, sending splinters and dust into the air. The mist swallowed it whole. The target slowed, the bells fell silent, and the oppressive, choking atmosphere seemed to ease, just slightly. A small weathered sign flickered into visibility above the booth. Pass. I barely had time to breathe before a fresh wave of chilling laughter rolled through the carnival, coming from every direction at once. Above it all, the carousel spun faster, its horses shrieking into the night. And somewhere far behind me, the hollow-eyed barker was still coming. Closer and closer and closer. I wiped the sweat and grime from my forehead, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The white line lay ahead, leading deeper into the heart of Evershade Carnival. The first test was over, but the night was just beginning. Part 4, Mirror Maze. The white line twisted like a serpent into a narrow alley draped in heavy velvet curtains. The fabric whispered against my arms as I pushed through, its texture clammy and damp like dead skin. Beyond the curtains, a heavy mist hugged the ground. The world became muffled, sounds warping strangely. The carousel's wail sounded distant and distorted, like a broken music box echoing underwater. Ahead, towering above the fog, was the entrance to the Mirror Maze. Its crooked sign hung by a rusted chain, swinging with a faint metallic creak. The letters were hand-painted in crimson. Find yourself before they do. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but the barker's rattling laugh chased me, growing louder, clawing at the edges of my mind. I had no choice but to plunge forward. Inside, it was a twisting labyrinth of tarnished mirrors. The glass was cracked, dirty, and warped. Some panels reflecting impossibly tall, thin versions of myself. Others showed grotesque distortions that weren't quite me at all. The air was ice cold. Each breath curled visibly in front of my face, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed endlessly. As I stepped deeper, the light dimmed. The only illumination came from weak, flickering bulbs strung haphazardly along the ceiling, each one swinging as if something unseen brushed past them. The mirrors played cruel tricks. Sometimes I caught glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye, quick, jerky shapes darting just out of sight. At one point, I caught a reflection of myself smiling, but I wasn't smiling. That version of me grinned wide and slow, baring teeth far too sharp, eyes gleaming with malicious glee. I stumbled back, heart hammering so hard it hurt. When I turned around, the reflection was gone. But now, something was wrong. The mirror corridors had shifted behind me, rearranging themselves like living veins. The white guiding line under my feet flickered and faded for a terrifying heartbeat before reigniting faintly. Leading deeper into the maze, I gritted my teeth and followed it, step by step. Halfway through, the mirrors began to breathe. I swear to God, they expanded and contracted, fogging over with every inhalation, clearing with every exhale. The maze itself felt alive, aware, watching. Then I heard it, a low, scraping sound, like fingernails dragging across endless glass. It was behind me, then beside me, then ahead of me. A chill spidered up my spine. Suddenly, a figure appeared in one of the mirrors up ahead. It wore a faded jester costume, torn and stained dark with old blood. Its head lolled unnaturally to the side, neck clearly broken, mouth split wide in a permanent, slack-jawed grin. And it moved when I moved, but not exactly. A half-second delay, like it was copying me, learning. Its gloved hands twitched spastically, and every movement made a faint, wet squelch sound. As I watched, horror mounting, it slowly lifted one trembling finger and pointed directly at me. The rule screamed inside my skull. Do not touch the mirrors. Do not engage your reflection. I bolted. Glass corridors flashed past me. Grotesque versions of myself melting, burning, shriveling in each reflection. The jester thing in the mirror shrieked, a shrill, gurgling sound that shattered several smaller mirrors around it. Shards rained down like deadly snow. I ducked and slid, heart racing, blood roaring in my ears, trying desperately to stay on the dim white line that flickered feebly beneath me. Ahead, finally, I saw it, a heavy velvet curtain marking the end of the maze, but standing before it was a perfect reflection of me. Perfect, except for the eyes. Its eyes were pure black voids, weeping thick tar-like tears that hissed when they hit the floor. It raised its hand slowly. I felt an invisible force pulling me toward it. Find yourself before they do. I squeezed my eyes shut. I forced my body to move forward, pushing through the space it occupied without ever touching it, willing myself not to look, not to think. The reflection howled in fury, a sound like glass exploding inside my brain. I ripped through the velvet curtain, landing hard on the damp earth outside. The air out here was different, heavy, charged. The carousel was still spinning wildly in the distance, but now there was something new, a heavy clang, like a massive iron bell, tolling somewhere deep inside the carnival grounds. One thing was certain, the deeper I went, the fewer rules would save me, and the harder it would be to find my way back. Part 5, The Forbidden Tent. The echo of the iron bell still rang in my ears as I stumbled away from the mirror maze. My vision shimmered, warped, as if the reflections had followed me, lingering behind my eyes. The white line beneath my feet was fainter now, barely visible against the cracked earth of the carnival path. Ahead loomed a massive red and black striped tent, far larger than anything else on the grounds. It pulsed with a dull crimson glow from within, like it was breathing. Painted crudely on a wooden plank hammered into the dirt was a new rule. Do not enter the black tent unless it calls you by name. The wind picked up, dry and sharp, fluttering the flaps of the tent like whispering lips. And then I heard it. my name, spoken in my own voice, but layered beneath it something deeper, older, like rotting velvet stretched across broken teeth. I froze. No one else was nearby. No performers, no guests, only the constant low music playing from somewhere. Slow accordion notes warbling like a funeral dirge. Then the voice spoke again. "Come closer, Michael." My legs moved before my brain could argue. The white guiding line had ended here, abruptly, at the tent's entrance. Either this was the end, or the true beginning. The canvas flaps parted as I stepped forward, but I didn't touch them. They moved on their own, rushing past me, like skin caressing a wound. Inside, the air was thick with incense and rot. Shadows danced along the walls, though there was no fire. The floor was soft, almost spongy, and each step sank slightly, like walking on flesh. Hanging from the center of the tent was a massive chandelier made entirely of jawbones, human, animal, and something else. Candles burned with green flames. The wax dripped upward, curling into smoke that whispered as it rose. In the middle of the space stood a pedestal, and on it a box, old, wooden, sealed with blood-red wax. My name was carved into the lid. "Choose wisely," whispered the voice again, surrounding me now, from every direction. I didn't want to move closer, but my feet disobeyed. I reached the box. My hands trembled as I touched the seal. The wax was still warm, sticky. The moment I broke it, the tent trembled. A groan echoed through the ground, as if the entire carnival had exhaled. Inside the box was a ticket, black with gold lettering. It shimmered with movement, like the ink was alive. It read, "Admit 1, final performance, seat, front row." My breath hitched. Suddenly, everything inside the tent stopped moving. The smoke froze midair. The lights dimmed. Even my heartbeat slowed. Then, a hand touched my shoulder. Cold, wet, too many fingers. I turned slowly, dreading what I would see. Behind me stood a tall figure in a tattered conductor's uniform. Its face was a featureless porcelain mask, cracked down the center. Behind the cracks, a milky eye blinked at me. Its mouth, if it had one, never moved, but I heard it speak. "You've been chosen, Michael. There is no turning back now. Ride begins at midnight." And with that, it slipped the ticket into my front pocket. Then it folded into itself, limbs cracking, bones twisting, collapsing into a pile of carnival confetti that smoldered with green flame. I stumbled backward, the box now gone, the pedestal empty. The tent began to collapse inward, the canvas sucking toward a single point like a dying star. I turned and ran, bursting out just as the entrance snapped shut behind me, with a sound like 1,000 knives unsheathing at once. The tent was gone. Only a patch of scorched earth remained. And at my feet, a faint line of white paint had reappeared, leading into the dark woods beyond the carnival grounds. The rules hadn't prepared me for this. Nothing had. But the train was coming, and I had a front row seat. Part 6, the midnight ride. The train tracks hadn't been there before. They cut through the forest like a scar, glinting under the moonlight, as silent and still as a graveyard. The white guiding lines snaked along beside them, leading me forward like a leash. In the distance, I heard it. A whistle, long and low, like a dying breath. Then the metallic screech of wheels grinding steel, growing louder with every second. I stepped onto the gravel lining the tracks, heart pounding. The trees surrounding the area trembled, and the wind picked up, hot and sour like carnival cotton candy left to rot. From the darkness ahead, a train emerged. It wasn't like any train I'd ever seen. Black metal gleamed under the moonlight, covered in rust and red handprints. The engine had a gaping, tooth-lined maw where a cowcatcher should have been. Steam hissed from its joints like snakes whispering in anger. Car by car, the monstrous locomotive rumbled past me. And through the cracked windows, I caught glimpses of Paz, a headless clown juggling human skulls, a little girl in a blood-stained tutu with empty eye sockets, something tall and spindly, grinning with needle teeth pressed against the glass. Then, the final car rolled past me, screeching to a halt. The door creaked open on its own. Inside was red velvet, rotting and moth-eaten, lit by flickering green lanterns. And in the center, a single empty seat, front row, golden trim, my name carved into the armrest. I stepped in. The moment I sat down, chains shot from the floor, coiling around my ankles and wrists. Not tight, just present, like a warning. The door slammed shut. With a jolt, the train started moving again. But it didn't just roll forward. It plunged downward, tracks twisting like a serpent as we dove into the earth. Outside the windows, the forest twisted into a blur, then into fire, then into stars. Gravity failed, time bent. I watched worlds spiral past, a mirror version of the carnival, upside down and soaked in blood. A room filled with eyes, each blinking in unison. A sea made of screaming faces, mouths gasping just below the waves. Somewhere ahead, something began to speak through the train's intercom. Welcome aboard the midnight ride. This is your conductor speaking. Rules for tonight's journey apply. Please remain seated. Do not speak to other passengers. Do not remove your ticket. In the event of an emergency, pray it's quick. My ticket, still in my front pocket, began to glow. I pulled it out. The words had changed. You may leave the train only if you survive all 3 stations. Failure to obey the rules results in permanent passengership. The chains around my limbs tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt, but enough to remind me they were very, very real. Then the lights in the cabin flickered. A sound echoed through the car. Not mechanical, but wet, like something dragging across tile. I wasn't alone anymore. The seat beside me was now occupied. A man, or what used to be one, dressed in a 1940s suit, soaked to the bone. His skin was greenish gray, his eyes milky white. Maggots writhed in the folds of his mouth, yet he grinned at me politely. "First time riding?" he asked, voice like wet leaves crunching. I didn't reply. The rules said not to. He leaned closer, whispering now, "You shouldn't have come to the carnival, boy. They only pick the ones they want. The ones who almost escaped their fate elsewhere." Suddenly, his head twisted all the way around, cracking like splintering wood. "And the train knows your real name." Outside, a sign flew past the window. Station 1, the forgotten playground. The train screeched to a halt. The door slammed open. The dead man beside me vanished. Not ran, not moved, just blinked out of existence. Chains unlocked. My seatbelt unfastened. A deep, hollow bell tolled through the car. My turn. I stepped off the train. Before me stretched a playground covered in thick, red fog. Swings moved by themselves, creaking. A seesaw rocked back and forth, though no one sat on it. A carousel spun slowly. Rusty horses grinning with sharp metal teeth. Carved into the sandbox, written in bone, "Do not let the children tag you. If they do, you become one of them." And then I heard them giggling. Tiny, high-pitched laughter coming from every direction. The rules had begun. Part 7, the playground game. The red fog was alive. It swirled around my legs, coiling like fingers, making every step toward the playground feel heavy, sticky, wrong. The sound of children's giggles grew louder, sharp and shrill, echoing in the mist. It wasn't playful. It was hungry. The swings clanged against metal poles. The merry-go-round spun so fast its rusty chains screeched like dying animals. My breath caught as I saw them. The children were wrong. Their bodies were small, but twisted. Some crawled on all fours, their backs bending the wrong way. Some floated inches above the ground, heads lolling at impossible angles. Their faces blurred like smeared paint, eyes too black, mouths too wide. They wore tattered carnival clothes, faded gesture hats, broken masks, polka dot dresses splattered with dark stains. And all of them were smiling. They were playing tag, and I was the next player. Suddenly, a hollow, creaking voice filled the fog. 1, 2, 3. Ready or not, here we come. The air snapped with movement. I turned and ran. My sneakers thudded against the cracked rubber ground as I sprinted toward the only visible landmark. A rusted jungle gym shaped like a twisted spider. The rules were simple: don't get tagged. But the kids moved impossibly fast. One zipped across the fog like a shadow, fingers clawing at the air. Another dropped from above, a girl with hair like wet seaweed, missing me by inches. They giggled louder, shriller. Up ahead, the jungle gym loomed. Its metal bars were slick with something dark and viscous. Not rain. It smelled of iron and rot. I scrambled up the side, hands slipping, legs shaking. Below, the kids gathered, staring up at me. One boy in a cracked porcelain mask raised his hand and waved, almost sweetly. Then he opened his mouth, and a second mouth, lined with yellowed fangs, gaped wide from inside his throat. They began climbing after me. I pulled myself onto the highest platform, panting. The fog thinned slightly at this height, and I spotted it. A glowing exit sign floating in the mist, way across the playground. But there was no clear path, no safe ground. The children were everywhere, crawling and scuttling like cockroaches on a feast. Suddenly, an Old Carnival speaker, hidden somewhere, crackled to life. New rule: the jungle gym is only safe for 30 seconds. I froze. After that, you become part of it. The metal bars beneath my hands started to shift. They twitched, flexed, groaned like bones breaking. The structure was alive. It wanted to absorb me. No choice now. I jumped. Landing hard on the cracked asphalt, pain jolted up my knees, but adrenaline shoved it aside. The children screamed in frustration, a sound so high-pitched it rattled my teeth. I sprinted toward the glowing exit, dodging grasping hands. One brushed the sleeve of my jacket. Instantly, the fabric blackened and frayed as if eaten by acid. I shoved forward, gasping, weaving between broken seesaws and toppled clown statues. The exit pulsed closer and closer. Behind me, dozens of tiny feet slapped the ground in furious pursuit. Just as I reached the glowing sign, something tackled me. I hit the ground hard, rolling over. I stared into the face of a girl. Her skin stretched too tight, eyes black pits dripping tar. She grinned, reaching for my face with clawed fingers. Tag! But before she touched me, the fog itself rose up, swallowing her whole. I scrambled up and dove through the glowing exit. Silence. The moment I crossed the threshold, all sound vanished. The giggles, the footfalls, the creaking rides, gone. I stood in a new corridor now. Walls of rotted velvet, floor made of old planks that sagged under my weight. Ahead, a sign hung crookedly from the ceiling. Station 2, the Hall of Living Mirrors. And below it, scrawled in dripping red letters, Rule, never trust your reflection. I could feel eyes watching me from the darkness. And somewhere distant, a mirror cracked. Part 8. The Hall of Living Mirrors. I stepped through the glowing exit, breath shallow, chest heaving. But the eerie silence around me only seemed to deepen the dread in my gut. The once faint echoes of children's laughter had vanished, replaced by the soft creaking of distant gears. I looked around. The walls of the new corridor shimmered, alive with the reflection of countless mirrors. Each one was framed in tarnished gold, covered in layers of dust. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, a vast maze of glass reflecting the broken carnival behind me. The sign above me, flickering in the dim light, confirmed it. The Hall of Living Mirrors. A chill slid down my spine. There was no escape through these walls. I tried turning around, only to find the exit I came from had disappeared. It was as if the fog itself had swallowed the door, erasing it from existence. I was alone. At least, I thought I was. The first mirror I passed seemed normal. The reflection was clear, though strange. It didn't show my face as I remembered it, pale, shaking, eyes wide with fear. Instead, I saw myself with a calm, unreadable expression. I froze. That wasn't me. I knew it wasn't, but I couldn't look away. Suddenly, a sound. Crack! It echoed through the hall, making me jump. I quickly pulled my gaze from the mirror and turned. I was sure I hadn't moved. Yet there it was, my reflection in the next mirror, smiling. I hadn't smiled. I stumbled backward, panic clawing at my chest. The mirrors seemed to watch me now, and I could feel my reflection shifting, its movements slow, deliberate, like it was mocking me. Then, from the corner of my eye, another mirror caught my attention. This one didn't reflect me. It reflected something behind me. I spun around in alarm, but there was nothing there. No one. The mirror, however, showed a figure, standing still, watching me from the shadows. It was a dark, hunched shape, shrouded in black, its eyes glowing with an unsettling red hue. I blinked. The figure was gone. I took a step forward, my heart pounding. The air was thick with something I couldn't place. Heaviness, as though the very atmosphere was alive and suffocating. Every mirror reflected me, but not the way I saw myself. Each time I looked into one, the reflection seemed slightly off, my expression distorted, my movements unnatural. I moved quickly now, trying to ignore the mirrors as best as I could, but it was impossible. Then, a voice, soft, gentle like a whispering breeze. "Come closer, dear." It echoed around me, bouncing from mirror to mirror. I spun in every direction, but there was no one there. Then, as if on cue, every single mirror moved. They rippled, like water disturbed by an invisible current. The faces within them shifted too. Their smiles twisted into grins, wide and grotesque. Their eyes became dark, filled with hunger. You should have listened to the rules. I turned and ran. The mirrors followed, every one of them reflecting not just me, but something else, someone else. I could see myself, but the reflection that followed was not me. It was a twisted version of me, a darker, distorted version. With each step, the reflections grew closer, as if they were chasing me through the hall. I ran faster. The air grew colder. The distant ticking of a clock echoed, louder now, closer. I dashed for the end of the hall, but the closer I got, the more mirrors seemed to emerge from the walls. It was impossible to escape. Every reflection stared back, whispering my name. The voice, now urgent, echoed louder. "You can't leave, not until you follow the rules." Then I saw it, the final mirror at the end of the hall. It didn't show a reflection of me. It showed an empty, black void. But I couldn't stop myself. I reached for it, my fingers trembling as I touched the cold glass. And as soon as my hand made contact, the glass shattered. Screams filled the hall. Part 9. The Dark Carnival. The shattering of glass echoed through the hall, reverberating deep within my bones. I stood there, frozen, as the broken mirror shards fell to the ground like raindrops of obsidian. But the moment my hand withdrew from the splintered glass, something shifted in the air. The carnival around me changed. A low hum began to rise, vibrating through the floor beneath me. The shadows in the hall deepened, curling in on themselves like smoke from a fire, thick and suffocating. The lights flickered out, one by one, until I was left in almost total darkness. Then, the music started. It was faint at first, distant carnival tunes, the kind you'd hear from a broken-down calliope, out of tune, hauntingly off-key. But as the music grew louder, so did the ground beneath my feet, shaking with the deep pulse of some hidden force. I could feel the thud-thud of a heavy bass, as though something was marching toward me. A wind picked up, but it wasn't fresh. It was damp, cold, like it came from the grave. The walls around me seemed to close in, the mirrors rippling with the sound of whispers, the reflections twisting into grotesque, mocking faces. I started running, my breath quick and shallow. The rules echoed in my mind, but I didn't know if they meant anything anymore. The once familiar hallway was now a distorted, nightmarish version of itself. And no matter where I turned, the carnival's darkness seemed to follow me, waiting to swallow me whole. The music grew louder. It was coming from ahead. I kept running, and then I saw it. The Ferris wheel. But it wasn't like the Ferris wheel from earlier. This one was twisted, broken, its metal frame half rusted, the cabin swaying in the breeze with a mournful groan. The once colorful lights were now flickering, casting sickly hues across the landscape of destruction. A cold, gray mist curled around its base, and I could see shadows moving between the broken structures of the carnival. But I couldn't tell if they were people or something else. The Ferris wheel's lights flickered again, but this time, something was different. In the shadows beneath it, I saw a figure. At first, it was nothing but a shape, cloaked in shadow. Then, as the lights dimmed, it stepped forward. It was her, the woman in the rags, the one I had seen in the mirrors. She was smiling, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was predatory. "You're lost," she said, her voice like nails scraping against metal. Her eyes glowed, dull, empty, but still glowing, like the lights of a carnival ride long abandoned. "You didn't listen to the rules, and now you're here, forever." I took a step back, panic clawing at me. The music was deafening now, the sound of a carnival that had long since died, yet somehow remained alive in the darkness. The shadows stretched toward me, reaching for my legs, my feet. They were alive. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't escape, not from the shadows or from her. I remembered the rules I had ignored. Then the air grew cold, freezing, like winter had suddenly descended. I could see my breath, and the cold gnawed at my bones. But the woman before me didn't move. She stayed perfectly still, her smile never wavering, her eyes locked on me like a trap. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and ran, running back the way I came, back to the Hall of Living Mirrors. But the mirrors had changed too. The reflections of the past were now replaced with those of the carnival. This carnival. And in every single reflection, there was no escape. I saw myself, still running, but I knew deep down that I would never leave. The carnival was alive. It was feeding on my fear, on my hopelessness. The rules I had ignored, they had been my last chance, and now I was trapped. The Ferris wheel's music drowned out everything. It was the only sound now. The only thing keeping me company in this endless, nightmarish world. And I knew I had broken the rules. Now I would never escape. Part 10. The final ride. The Ferris wheel towered before me, its metal frame twisted, like the bones of a forgotten giant. The gears of its mechanism grinding with an eerie, mechanical groan. I didn't know how long I'd been running, or how many twists and turns I had taken in this cursed carnival. But I was certain of one thing. I had reached the end of the road. The woman with the glowing eyes stood there, waiting, as if she had known all along I would come to this place. Her smile was still there, stretching too wide across her face, showing too many teeth. She tilted her head slightly, as if amused by my fear, and then in that raspy voice, she spoke again. "You've come far, but it's too late now," she said, her words vibrating in the air, each one like a cold touch against my skin. "You broke the rules, and the carnival has claimed you." I glanced back at the Ferris wheel. The shadows around it were shifting again, moving, writhing like serpents in the dark. The cabins of the wheel spun slowly, creaking and groaning, as if the spirits of those who had come before me were trapped inside. "Do you hear it?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost a whisper. "The carnival is alive. It's always been alive. And when the ride ends, so do you." I was paralyzed, unable to move or even breathe properly. The music played louder, its sinister tune echoing through the air, the same haunting melody I had heard before. But this time, it was different. It was no longer just a sound. It was an invitation to join them. The Ferris wheel began to turn, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, its metallic roar now a deafening cacophony in my ears. And then, as if it were responding to her command, the woman raised her hand, and I felt an irresistible pull, a force that was both terrifying and soothing at once. I stumbled forward, my body moving against my will, as if the carnival itself were pulling me into its depths. The air turned colder with every step. The wind had stopped blowing, replaced by an unnatural stillness. But my heartbeat grew louder, the pounding sound in my chest almost drowning out everything else. I reached the base of the Ferris wheel, the shadows now thick and oppressive, wrapping themselves around my ankles like unseen hands. The woman's eyes were locked on mine, her lips curling upward again in that wicked smile. "Climb," she whispered, and it felt like the whole carnival was breathing around me. The walls of the darkened tents seeming to lean in closer. I climbed into one of the Ferris wheel's cabins, its door creaking open as though it had been waiting for me. The cabin felt colder than I had ever imagined, the metal seat icy beneath my hands. And as I closed the door behind me, the carnival lights flickered once more, casting brief, ghostly shadows across the structure. The wheel began to turn faster now. Too fast. Faster than it should have been able to move. The carnival around me blurred into streaks of color, the lights flashing and disappearing in waves, as if reality itself was distorting with every rotation. The shadows in the carnival seemed to stretch out, reaching up toward me, as if trying to pull me out of the cabin. I heard whispers, thousands of them, swirling around me, each one a promise, a threat, a warning. The woman's voice drifted to me once more. "It's too late," she said. "You were never meant to leave. The carnival always wins." I could feel myself being lifted higher and higher. The carnival below shrinking until it became a mass of twisted, disjointed shapes. And as the wheel turned, I realized something. I wasn't alone. There were others in the cabins, others who had been trapped here long before me. Their faces were distorted, their eyes hollow, their forms fading in and out of existence. The whispers grew louder. Some were pleading, some were angry, some were laughing. And then everything stopped. The Ferris wheel froze, suspended in mid-air. I was at the very top now. The carnival below me, nothing but a blur of dark shadows and twisted shapes. The woman was gone, but I wasn't alone. The carnival had claimed me, and I was trapped in a never-ending ride. I was a part of its history now, a part of its story, just another ghost lost in its labyrinthine maze. The rules had never mattered. Not really, because once you enter, there is no way out. And now, I would ride forever. Part 11. The Endless Show. I thought the Ferris wheel would be my end, but I was wrong. The moment it stopped, the carnival around me seemed to exhale, like a beast that had been holding its breath too long. The air was thick, heavy, suffocating, and yet I couldn't move. It wasn't just my legs that were frozen. It was my soul, trapped in this cycle of torment and illusion. As I sat at the top of the Ferris wheel, surrounded by nothing but shadows and a swirling, distorted carnival beneath me, I realized the truth. I wasn't alone. The others were there. Their faces, pale and twisted, their eyes hollow as if drained of all life, stared at me from the other cabins. They didn't speak, not at first. They just stared, their gazes cold and empty. But in their eyes, I saw something. Recognition. They had seen the same horrors. They had made the same mistake. They were once like me, newcomers, filled with hope or curiosity, only to be consumed by the carnival's endless hunger. A sound broke the silence, the low, rumbling laughter of the carnival's master. The clown, the one who had first greeted me at the gates, his painted face now cracked and decayed, stood at the center of the midway below, grinning up at me. His mouth was impossibly wide, stretching from ear to ear, the laughter emanating from his throat like the shrill cries of 1,000 souls trapped in torment. His voice echoed through the air, deep and jarring, sending tremors through the Ferris wheel as it creaked under the weight of the invisible pressure. Welcome back, performer. The carnival was calling us, not to entertain, but to become part of its eternal show. We had all been chosen, pulled from the world of the living to become part of its twisted, endless performance. We would never leave. We would never be free. The Ferris wheel began to move again, slowly, deliberately, as if the carnival had decided it was time for the final act. But I wasn't just being taken around again. No, this time was different. The lights flickered once more, brighter and more erratic, like a storm of neon crashing against the darkness. The music, the same haunting tune, played louder, more urgent, as if the carnival itself was desperate to keep us in its grasp. The carnival had always been alive, but now it was awakening. The colors and shapes around me blurred, the tents and rides melting together like a nightmare. But I couldn't look away. The phantoms in the other cabins started to move, their bodies jerking, as if they were puppets on strings. They were performing, dancing, screaming, forever trapped in their own personal hell. Then, the clown's voice cut through the madness, booming in my ears. It's time for the final performance. And with that, the ride shot forward with a terrifying force. I was pulled down, faster and faster, the wind whipping past my face. I heard the screams of the others, their voices blending with the wind, turning into a cacophony of agony. The world around me spun, and for a moment, I felt weightless, free, as if the carnival had released me, finally. But that wasn't the case. No, I was only plunging deeper into its endless abyss. The carnival had no end. It was a show that never stopped. And the moment you enter, you become part of it. The clown was waiting below, a twisted grin stretched across his face, as if to welcome me back into the fold of lost souls. The Ferris wheel finally stopped, but this time I wasn't at the top. I was at the bottom, looking up at the endless cycle. The lights above flickering like the eyes of 1,000 trapped souls. The show would continue, forever, for eternity. And now, it was my turn. I stepped off the Ferris wheel, my feet heavy, as I stood in the center of the carnival. The phantoms that had been trapped here before me reached out, their hands cold and clammy, as they tried to pull me into their performance. But I didn't resist. I had become one of them, a ghost trapped in this twisted carnival, forever bound to its rules, forever trapped in its endless nightmare. The rules were simple, but they had been too late for me. You never escape, not from the Old Carnival. As the carnival lights flickered one last time, Part 12, The Last Rule. The cold pierced through my skin, but it wasn't from the wind. It was from something else, something I couldn't explain. The night had swallowed the carnival whole, and the silence was deafening, as though the world outside this twisted place had ceased to exist. I stood at the center of the Old Carnival, surrounded by flickering lanterns that danced like fragile embers, as though they too were waiting to snuff out. Distant, distorted sounds of broken carnival rides echoed from somewhere, but I couldn't tell where. Everything felt like it was spinning, and there was no room for logic or reality anymore. Then, a phrase, a distant whisper from an encounter I'd almost forgotten, echoed in my mind. It was from someone lost here, one of the souls trapped in the carnival, someone who had tried to escape but failed. The phrase hit me like a bolt. When you no longer fear, you can escape the carnival. I stopped, eyes wide, trying to make sense of it. No longer fear. The phrase haunted me, repeating over and over in my head. I had been living in fear since I first stepped foot in this cursed place. Every corner held a terror. Every step was filled with dread. But what if I stopped fearing? Could I leave? Something inside me stirred, a strange feeling of awakening. The image of the spinning Ferris wheel, the swirling chairs of the tilt-a-whirl, they no longer terrified me. Death, the thing I feared most, now felt like a distant, faint thought. My perception began to change. I wasn't resisting anymore. I was starting to accept everything. The carnival, the shadows, the rules, even the monsters, they were part of me now. Suddenly, a door appeared in front of me. It wasn't a door in the physical sense, but a spiritual threshold, a way out that only those who could shed their fear would be able to see. The sensation of peace washed over me. There were no more sounds, no more screams or ominous creaking from the rides. Everything was still. The carnival no longer threatened me. All of it was receding, fading away into the shadows. I stepped through the door, and for the last time, I glanced back. The carnival still stood there, but it didn't loom over me anymore. It was just an image in the distance, fading into the dark. When I stepped out into the real world, I couldn't say for sure whether I had truly escaped the carnival, or if it was just another endless loop. But one thing was certain. I had conquered the one thing that could let me leave. Fear. Psst. Thank you for staying till the end. If your heart's still beating, maybe it's time to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be waiting here every week with a new nightmare just for you. Remember, in the silence, something always listens back.